Happy Thursday. It is time for our next episode of Networking at Noon, and I'm super excited today to be joined by Chris Krimitsos. Welcome, Chris. Glad to have you here with us.
Thank you, Tiffany. Glad to be here.
Yeah, and are you in Tampa right now?
Yeah, I'm Tampa, just a block from the stadium.
All right, so today we're coming from Tampa, so awesome to have you here with us. I've known Chris for quite a while. And he actually started something. I met him and he had a networking organization, but he started something pretty amazing a couple of years after that. So, Chris, can you tell us who you are, what you do, all that fun stuff?
Yeah, at the base level, I put on events for communities. And a few years back, I found podcasting to be fascinating. And I started this event called Podfest. And Tiffany knows me because I go from community to community and preaching basically the gospel of podcasting. And back then, 8 or 9 years ago, I'd have to spend time explaining what podcasting is, what it isn't, and how to utilize it. But we created a community out of that called Podfest, and it was founded here in Tampa. Then we moved it out to Orlando. But every year, it's pretty much doubled or grown in size. So we started with 100 attendees at that festival. Last year, we had over 2,000 registered attendees. So it's been a real blessing, and it's been really amazing to see it grow.
Now, I know a question that's on so many people's minds lately is, okay, are we going to be doing one? Is it virtual? Is it in person? So what is the future, at least the short-term future for what Podfest has to offer?
So in November, we'll be holding one at the Amalie Arena, but we will have a virtual event prior to that. And then we'll switch 4th and 5th 2 days. At the Amalie Arena, we'll have a full functioning Podfest, but we're calling it Podfest Origins. Because of the COVID thing and everything going on, it's a limited attendee crowd inside the Amalie Arena. We're capping it around 200 attendees. We're already halfway there, and we're bringing it back to the source. Tampa is where we started. So it's this rare opportunity that we can bring it back to Tampa. And then next year we're back in Orlando. More than likely it'll be big events. Looks like that's the way everything's going. So we're excited to have it here one more time.
So who would be awesome to, or not, maybe that's not the right way to ask questions. So who would want to attend Podfest? Am I somebody, or Podfest Origins? Am I somebody that's been podcasting for years, somebody new to podcasting? Who's good to attend a Podfest?
So the one in person this year would be anyone that is an active podcaster or a business person that's looking to connect with influencers. If I told you, 10 or 20 years ago, hey, there's a room that's housing Oprah, Dr. Phil, all these people you see on TV, and you could hang out with them. I don't think anyone would blink an eye to get to that room. What they don't realize, that opportunity exists right now in today's golden age of the content creator. So you never know what kind of connections you could get out of it or learn. For the beginner portion, that'll be our virtual portion. We have quite a bit of really good beginner information for people.
Gotcha. And if people want to get tickets, how do they go about getting tickets?
Just go to podfestexpo.com and you could go get tickets right then and there.
Awesome. Excellent. So let me ask, you mentioned the people there will be influencers, but from a podcast position, not necessarily just for Podfest, is it too late to start a podcast? If I don't have one yet, is it too late?
Yeah, it's never too late. The challenge is, what I would tell anyone doing this is do your research. Most people don't do research. So go on iTunes, into the podcast store, put some keywords in there, see what's out there, and then listen to those shows and see if there's an opportunity either in format, meaning is there an opportunity for some short form content for your niche or a long form, or is there something that you could do that would be unique? And make sure that you're keywording your show correctly. And there's still audiences very hungry. I think we still haven't made the full shift from radio to podcasting. I think we're at the seesaw point where it's about to flip over, but it still hasn't happened yet. So there's still tons of opportunities every day of the week that are available for individuals. And if you don't want to start a podcast, you should be a guest on a podcast. So those opportunities are open for everybody.
So if I want to be a guest on a podcast, how do I go about doing that?
A great tool is podmatch.com. It's a free tool, and it literally matches you up to be a guest on podcasts. And if you pay for the premium, it makes it a little bit easier. So just go to podmatch.com, and then there's booking agencies that you could pay premium, but they definitely deliver, is Interview of LA and Interview Connections. Those are two pay-to-play booking agencies, basically PR agencies for small business owners.
Excellent. And why or how could a podcast help my business? I know some people are probably like, well, I listened to this one, but I don't know if it would help me at all.
Yeah, so being a guest, you mean?
Yeah, or being a guest, or even actually just why should I start my own podcast? Like, would that help my business?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different nuances. So you could start a podcast that's industry specific. So that way you can meet all the people in your industry that you always wanted to meet and have a long form conversation, build that relationship after the podcast interview is done. You could also ask for booth space as part of the media. Now that you have a podcast at the conventions you probably go to already, now you could interview all the players that you want to. And at the very basic fundamental level, you have an audience that's listening, that's loyal to you, that you could work off of and collaborate with. If you're a guest, you definitely get a benefit because you're talking about what you do. You got to make sure you're interesting. And then after, most podcasters do what's called show notes, a lot of them anyways. And what they'll do is they'll summarize an episode and put a link back to your website. So you get very high PR traffic links back to your website, which is great for search engine optimization.
So it sounds like there's a lot of reasons to be involved in the podcast.
Yeah, that's just a few off the top of my head. Yeah, there's so many more, but that's just off the basic fundamental level. And we do have a YouTube track for YouTubers. So at Podfest, we will have a video track. Those are the 2 tracks at the Amalie Arena. We don't have much more space than 2 tracks, so it'll be great for people who want to do video and people who want to do audio, and both.
What do you feel is the difference between video and audio?
If you're doing like a YouTube channel, the difference is a lot more money to edit because most people don't know how to edit, or a lot more time. However, a video show people see your face. So there is a lot of value to them seeing your face, real estate wise. An audio show is much easier to produce. It's easier to catalog, and it's just cheaper cost wise. So that's the differences. The key is do what's best for you and your time. So most business owners are busy. So we tend to tell them to try an audio show first before they go into live streaming a video, unless they have a natural inclination towards that, only because it just takes a little bit more effort.
Gotcha. All right, cool. So we are here today at our networking at noon, where I am talking to Chris Krimitsos, who is the creator of Podfest. Now, you have a Guinness Book World Record.
Yes.
Right?
Yep. It's right over my shoulder. You might see it over here. It's for right here. It is on this right there. It's for the largest virtual podcast event of podcasters over a week's time. We had over 5,003 people on a virtual event that are active podcasters. We set a Guinness World Record, and then we actually tried to beat that record. We're in the process of certifying our second world record because we did beat the first number. So it was a lot of work. We had over 500 speakers on the second one. We had 8 languages spoken, basically every time zone known to man. We would start at 6 a.m. and finish a lot of times at 9, 10 p.m.
Wow. Speaking of speakers, that just reminded me. So one of our previous guests on Networking at Noon, who was on at the beginning of 2021, I think I heard he is going to be one of your speakers for the Podfest that's happening at Amalie Arena, and that would be Sean Yester.
Yes, he is. Sean's actually an amazing podcaster. He's built quite a bit of notoriety with his Crushing Debt podcast, but he's also a really great educator. He always has been, you know that. So he, like, wherever he goes, whatever he learns, he has a really great gift at relating the complex and making it easy for people to understand. So he's one of our homegrown talents. So we're excited to feature a lot of homegrown people out of Tampa Bay that are going to be appearing at Podfest. It's going to be really fun.
Awesome. Now, if somebody's watching this and they're thinking, okay, how do I start a podcast? What's kind of you don't have to give us everything, because I'm sure that would be like a whole 5-hour conversation. But, what are kind of some of the first initial steps? I know you said look into, what's already out there.
Yeah, I gave you the strategy. Yeah.
If I'm actually starting it, what does that look like?
Well, the first thing you want to do is buy a microphone. So this mic is around $100. AT, the initials are AT 2005, made by Audio Technica. So that's like the model number, AT 2005. And you turn it on, you plug it in, it's USB enabled. And then you use a tool like Tiffany's doing Restream, or you could use Squadcast, and you hit record. And that is the first step to creating a podcast. Now, you have to create what's called an RSS feed, and you do need a hosting company, much like our websites need GoDaddy and maybe HostGator. A podcast, same thing. You need a host, a media host. So there's Libsyn, Buzzsprout, Podbean, Anchor. Some hosts are free, some are $5, $6, $7, not much. And basically, that allows you to house your what's called your RSS feed, and then you register your podcast with Apple, and that opens you up to the world because then that puts you in hundreds of directories.
That's awesome. Thanks so much for those kind of basic beginning tips. So let me ask you a completely kind of different question, because our sponsor is Asentiv, and that is all about the amazing business and spectacular life. We've talked about the business. So tell me, what do you like to do for fun?
So I'm a big hiker, and in Florida, there's very little elevation. So I'll go up to Gainesville or I'll go into the Everglades. So I just like hiking different terrain and just getting out into the wilderness, bird watching, hiking, stuff like that. And I go to a lot of I'll go to Repticon, which is a reptile show. I'll go to anything with animals just to see them up close, whether it's in the wildlife or, people that are breeding them. I just love going to those like sideshow, the sanctuaries that help protect them as well. But I'm big into just being around all kinds of different animals.
What's the rarest or the weirdest animal that you've ever seen?
I mean, the first time I saw a legless lizard, a glass lizard, I didn't realize we had those in Florida, but I've seen them now quite often. I've seen some really rare moths at night. If you go late at night when everybody's asleep, the nighttime shift of animals changes around midnight to 1 a.m. So if you can stay up past that with a flashlight around this time of year, there's I forgot the name, but it was on the cover of a movie. There's like a Rothschild moth, and there's some other things. They're so big and they're yellow. It's incredible. I don't know how rare they are, but it's like you don't see them unless you're up at night. And then I've seen veiled chameleons. Most people don't know, but Florida has chameleons, the kind that you see in commercials. Not geckos. We have those too, but veiled chameleons. And I do go chameleon spotting at night. I've seen that in Cuban anoles, which are really big. They're like much bigger than the little guys that we've seen. So there's a lot of Cuban night anoles is the correct term. There's a lot of weird fauna that Florida has that you would never think that we have.
Interesting. Learn something new every week.
Yeah, I've seen tons of invasive parrots, but they're not really invasive because most people don't know we had a Quaker, not a Quaker. We had a Carolina parakeet that would dominate from the Everglades all the way up to South Carolina, and it's extinct. So now wild flocks of Quakers, Nandays, cherry-headed parrots have taken that place in the ecosystem, and you'll see them all across the coast.
Oh, awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that with us. I'm learning something new. We're here with today's episode of Networking at Noon, talking to Chris Krimitsos, who is not only the creator of Podfest, he's the author of Start Ugly. So I want to switch gears. Got the book sitting right there. Oh, yeah, there we go. So we've got Start Ugly. So can you tell us what Start Ugly the book is about, what the phrase is about, what's going on there?
Yeah, so Start Ugly. Teaching a classroom. No worries. I was teaching a classroom about how to get started. This is years ago about video. We were teaching like probably YouTube video or something, and they kept saying, "What kind of camera do you have?" They were focusing on the plumbing, so to speak, and really the plumbing didn't matter. You just got to go do it, And I remember in frustration, I just told them, "Just start ugly." And I said that in lieu of saying anything really bad, but I said it like in frustration. And someone raised their hand and they said, "Can you tell me more about that Start Ugly concept?" There was no concept other than the words. But I realized early on there's some power behind starting ugly, allowing people to experiment and be okay with it. So I wrote a fictional story very similar to like the Who Moved My Cheese series on a gentleman that got stuck and had to figure out how to start ugly again. And it takes place 100 years ago, so it's applicable to anyone today. And it's been extremely popular. We've been able to sell thousands of these. What happens is consultants and people that deal with clients will get them as gifts almost all the time for their classrooms, for their clients. A lot of teachers that'll buy it, and then they'll make it required reading. It's a 30-minute read. It's a very simple book. But basically the concept is most of us rob ourselves of getting started. So the concept is set a start time. Be okay that your first start will be ugly. As long as you're willing to improve, you'll get to where you need to go. And the Start Ugly process is, if you decide 6 months later or whatever the timeline is, you don't like what you're doing, you could stop and then start ugly on something else. But what you're doing is you're robbing yourself of thinking about it for years on end and not doing anything about it. So you're able to try different things and see what you really like. And I think in humanity, a lot of us don't know what our greatest gifts are because we're not willing to start ugly again. When we're little babies, we do. But somewhere along the line, as we reach a moniker of success, we're much more risk averse to starting ugly again and trying new things.
I love it. Yeah, let's just get something done. Just try it.
Yeah, and it's on Amazon. I do recommend.
By the time I screwed up 7 times, I'll get it right versus never starting it at all.
Yeah, and it's not even a screw up. You're just starting. You're just trying different things, trying them on. So that's really the reframing of it. A lot of us will. Well, you're someone that tries a lot of things, so you understand that. You're naturally inclined to testing things out. But a lot of people will guilt themselves into why they shouldn't start. So the book is on Amazon. I would recommend getting the used copies. There's so many out there, and they're like half the price. So, and it helps me getting the used copies off of the market too. So I appreciate that.
Awesome. Thank you.
I'll actually buy used copies as gifts because it's half the price. So once you publish, I don't really have control over the thing, but if you want to get a good deal, look at Start Ugly. Get the physical copy because we designed the cover to sit on they're over my shoulders, and it kind of robs me of when I'm thinking about something. I'm like, all right, let me just Start Ugly, figure it out.
Excellent. So Chris, if people are looking to get in touch with you, what is the best way for them to reach out, get in touch with you? How do they find out more about Chris?
I mean, all this is evolving right now. Facebook, but we saw Facebook went down the other day, and Chris at podfestexpo.com. I want to leave you with this thought, Tiffanie. In the 50s and 60s, I know you and I weren't around, but a lot of people were. TV had like 5 channels or maybe 4. At night, they would run color bars because there was nothing out there. For social media right now, we're living in that same time when there's 5 companies that basically control all of the media. And what the thought I want to leave everybody with is it's starting to fraction in a good way. More choices are coming online. So understand that creates tons of opportunities across the spectrum as we go from our 5 social media companies to literally be hundreds. Like we just saw with the, what was the one, the audio chat one just recently was very popular. Which one?
Clubhouse?
Yes, thank you. Clubhouse was really big. So you're going to see a lot of test runs like that, but they're going to gain more traction over time. So I'm excited to watch it really fractionalize, but that's going to create so much opportunities because I'm seeing with the younger generation, a lot of them are in Telegram groups, Discord groups. A lot of the people that are in crypto, they're in Discord groups, which is from the gaming community. And so we're seeing a lot of that. Right now, you can find me at Facebook or just email me directly, Chris at podfestexpo.com.
Awesome. So we're here with Chris Krimitsos. We're beginning to wrap up our interview today. I've got 2 questions to kind of get us to the end. The first is, what is one tip that you have for our viewing audience? One thing that they really should take away from you today?
So a lot of people in business will always say, I don't have any business. I don't know what I'm doing, or nothing's coming in. So the tip is, instead of being reactive, go on the offensive and take action. So one of the tips I have is do what's called an e-introduction. E-introduction is when you take 2 people that you know should meet and you create an email and it's crafted. So for instance, Tiffanie does these, I do them. I'd say, if I'm using Tiffanie and myself as the example, let's say I think Tiffanie should meet my friend Gabe. I'd say, Tiffanie, in the subject line, e-intro to Gabe. And I'd say, Tiffanie, I think your show is amazing. Thank you for having me on. I think my friend Gabe adds a lot of value and he's does this in this area. I'll say, Gabe, I think Tiffanie has this amazing show. I think you should check it out. And then I would say their emails at the base and create an e-introduction. And you might say, why do you want to do that? I'm offensively now creating connections and these people are thinking about me. And then they might say, Chris, thank you so much. How can I support you? And I might say, you know what, if you know anyone getting into podcasting, can you send them my way? Both of them are going to say, absolutely. Thank you for that connection.
Awesome. Love it. Love the idea. Yes, let's connect people, create the introduction, create the relationship, which definitely helps encourage the relationships you already have with the people. This is not my last question, but I did want to take a little side journey because are you still hosting the Florida Podcasters?
Yes, second Tuesday of every month at 6 p.m., I believe, or 6:30 to 8 o'clock. at the IHOP on 4910 West Spruce across from the airport. But if you go to Florida Podcasters Association on Meetup or Facebook, you'll find us.
Perfect. Excellent. All right. My last question for you is, what is your favorite brew?
Okay, so that's changed throughout the years. Green tea, 2 bags of green tea straight up used to be my favorite brew. Right now, in the morning, on the weekends, I will get up early before my girls get up, and I will drive to Wawa and get a hazelnut coffee straight up, and that's like, and I never drank coffee before. I was always a tea drinker, so I transitioned, but no sugar, no milk, just straight up. I love the hazelnut coffee at Wawa. It almost smells like Lucky Charms for some reason for me, so that's why I like it.
Interesting. There you go. The favorite brew. Thank you so very much, Chris, for being here with us today. Reach out to Chris with your podcast. Join him, whether it's the Florida Association meeting, whether it is at the Podfest. Grab the book off of Amazon, whether you get it new or used. I'm big on. I love that. I'm like, where's my book? I've got like a book drawer because I have all my book club books.
I love it.
I always have like books ready to go. So I can't. I like listening to stuff, but I don't like listening to business books. There's something about reading them. Well, I'll listen to them like the second time, but there's something about reading them that's just satisfying, I guess. All right. Well, I look forward to seeing y'all next week for our networking at noon. Thank you so very much, Chris, for being here with us, and I'll see y'all soon. Happy networking.
Thank you, Tiffany.